I want to ask you, John, how are you running into in terms of drive impacts right now? Because you and I were really big on saying that this is going to be the scrub killer, right? How is it playing out so far for you?
So it's not as powerful as I was worried it was going to be, especially when you're not in the corner. Drive impact becomes much more scary when you're in the corner, because if you block a drive impact, you'll still stumble backwards. And if you stumble, it's fine. But if you stumble backwards in the corner and you make contact with the wall, you splat. And that can mean a full combo follow-up right afterwards. So drive impact is scarier in the corner, but when you're doing it in the neutral, just like wherever, like I actually ran into Maximilian, who's probably played the game more than almost anybody except for perhaps like Capcom, and his ability to react to drive impacts and be ready for them, like it's already sort of tuned up a little bit better. So like any time that I just kind of tossed it out, because you do want to throw it out there and check people, and it's like, oh, if they threw out a stray move, this is going to eat that up. You're not encouraged to throw out stray moves in this game, so that's not as big of a thing as it might be. But Maximilian was just countering any time I threw out a drive impact, usually with one of his own, but you can also neutral jump. And in theory, you can perfect parry, but perfect parrying is hard in this game. I think the window for it is something like 4 frames, if I'm not mistaken. And I believe the parry window in Third Strike was closer to like 10. So take that as you will. If you've played Third Strike, it's more than twice as hard to time your parries to get perfect parry in this. So as far as drive impact goes, it is a thing, and we haven't seen all of the BS with it, because you can cancel out of normals into drive impact.
Oh, yeah.
And there are certain scenarios where I'm sure that like you use it here, and yeah.
I had a Kim player who every single time I was going for a combo or anything like that, he's hitting drive impact and waiting for me to drop my combo and just nail me with it, which he did. And I'm like, son of a gun, like that's really good. And it's kind of a free thing to mash at this moment in time. And I personally still feel like that one of these upcoming patches or other stuff, that 1 bar that drive impact takes, I think is still BS, because EX moves take 2 bars and drive impact is 1 bar. It's got 3 hits of armor. It's like I think some aspect of drive impact is going to be nerfed here in the future. It still feels too good for me for the risk reward of it, and especially in a game that's all about managing resources. Taking 1 bar to do that and having something that's safe on block and pushes the opponent back and has so much reward, it feels still to me too good. But it's not it's not game breaking, and none of us said it was going to be game breaking or anything like that. We knew that. It just still feels a little bit too, this is kind of, it's too free, kind of thing. But as you mentioned, you can't throw it out like randomly. You've got to have some calculation to it. But those scenarios still feel a little too strong to me, just from what I've seen so far.
Maybe, and I probably wouldn't have any issue if they nerfed it a little bit. But if you land a drive impact and you're not getting a counter hit or anything like that in the neutral, it's like it does a little bit of damage, but it's fairly inconsequential. And it does feel like a risk, and it's not as much right now because people's eyes and fingers are not tuned to be able to react to it consistently for the most part, but they will fairly fast. Like I played a handful of matches with Dream King, and at the beginning, we were throwing out a little more liberal drive impacts, but by the end of just a set, we were much better about countering it and being ready for it. And but the thing about drive impact is that it sort of plays a particular role somewhat similar to the parry. Now there is the parry, and maybe like that's enough. When you think about Third Strike, the reason that you can't just low forward fireball every time in Third Strike, because even a process as simple as that can be beaten by the parry. Well, in this game, if you're just throwing out block strings that are normal, like I'm Jamie, I want to do low forward into Rekkas, and often I'm getting away with low forward into the first Rekka, and if it didn't hit, then fine, whatever. But you can use the drive impact for people that are just going on autopilot block strings and blow them up for it. So it's got a handful of different applications, as do seemingly most parts of this game, which is one of the reasons the whole thing feels very Third Strike-ian, or one aspect of Third Strike, is that there is something else that could happen in most every situation. So like you're almost never guaranteed that things will play out the way you necessarily expect. There's something your opponent can do, or there's something that you can do to throw a wrench in the works, and often that is drive impact, because it absorbs hits.
Yeah, and parrying is something I'm still seeing the least amount of across the board. It's drive impacts are hands down number one of all the things I've seen spent, and then drive impacts and maybe EX gauge or whatever, or overdrive or whatever, and then next up there would be the drive rush, and then the third is parry. That's how I'm seeing things so far.
I forgot about V reversal or drive reversals even in the game. I don't know if I've seen that yet, but yeah.
But is that about how the core mechanics are shaping up for you?
Yeah, just about. Like people use a lot of drive impact. Parry kind of, I don't want to say parry sucks, but parry is you don't want to do it very often if it's not perfect parry, and perfect parry is hard to do. And right now at this early stage, drive impact feels like sort of a substitute or a better option, a more a safer kind of a thing to try to attempt. So I think that's getting the lion's share of the attention when it comes to the defensive aspect of the drive system. But yeah, I would agree pretty much exactly with what you just said in terms of usage.
All right, and just to finish up here, load times and rematch times definitely seem quite a bit better than Street Fighter V. There's been the whole advent of SSDs being in the console machines and most PC gamers and stuff, and developers have learned to take better advantage of that. So I was fully expecting rematch and load times to be quite a bit faster than they are in Street Fighter V, and I'm happy to report that that is the case so far. I actually expect them to improve even further and stuff to get even faster and better. There's some, when you're loading up the game, there's some error messages and other stuff that, just it's a beta. That's what you expect. So that slows down actually the load times and other things. But right now, I think it's about twice as fast as Street Fighter V is with loading various things around the game, and that's really what it should be from a game released in this era.
Yeah, I have found myself a little frustrated at certain times because of, but again, you're right. It's probably just because it's the beta, and as long as that goes away by the time the game actually drops, and like sometimes it'll hiccup and it'll pause. And one time it took 45 seconds for Dream King and I to get an actual rematch. We thought we were just kind of like frozen, and it was like 45 seconds later, and then it was like, yeah, now your rematch happens. But again, it's the test, so I can't fault it too hard.
All right, John, any final thoughts?
I'm excited. I feel like I'm excited and I am intimidated. You're not going to master this game very quickly, and you're already seeing people come out with crazy tech and crazy combos, and oh my gosh, it's kind of scary. I would say don't, and I'm preaching this to myself just as much as anybody else, don't feel like you need to optimize. Don't feel like you need to know the exact right thing to do, the right way to play. Nobody knows the right way to play, and there are so many options in so many situations that just give yourself some patience and have fun during the process. And the most important part of this all is that Street Fighter 6 allows for that. It allows for that entry-level fun, and that fun looks like it will carry on as we figure things out and start to build on the foundations that we're setting down right now. So 2 thumbs up from me.
Yeah, I'll just let everyone know that it's very typical that Capcom does an open beta with this stuff at some point in time. I see quite a bit of desire, or need, I should say, for them to do that, to really stress test their servers out and kind of get a much better idea of what things are going to be like when the final game comes. So even if you didn't get in the closed beta this time, hold out some hope that you're going to be able to get in either one of the future ones or the open beta or something like that. I think there's going to be something more coming in the future for fans, and so feel very lucky that we all got in, and it's been awesome playing it. But for everyone else out there, there's going to be other chances here. So
right on.
All right, y'all. That's going to wrap us up for this week of EventHubs Talking Block. Once again, thank you all so much for listening, and we'll be back with you soon.
See you next time.